Hey guys, it's Hayden here making another video. Today I'm going to go through my whole psychosis recovery process. Let's get into it. So in a lot of videos I've had a lot of questions about my recovery process and questions about durations of time that they would take for each phase and different questions like that. So what I'm going to do today is go through each of the phases of my recovery. So that includes the psychosis part, the grounding part, the reintegration part, and the maintenance and prevention part. So I'm going to go through all those different steps, explain what each phase looks like, how long it would take approximately, or how long it took for me at least, and what you can do or what important development goals are important during those phases. So with this video, I'm not going to go into anything before the psychosis started because that's a whole nother topic. So I'm going to start right with where the psychosis began. That being said, phase one is the actual psychosis itself. So during this phase, you could experience delusions, hallucinations, and disconnection from reality. There's not really a ton you can do while you're in this phase. Most of it's going to be what other people can do for you, and that's to make sure that you stay safe and that other people stay safe as well. So keeping everybody in a safe space and making sure that you have a safe place to go through the experience. So you can have a place where you can kind of go through the experience and allow it to kind of run its course. Obviously, medication is something that could be implemented here. That's up to you. It's up to your providers, but that would be a tool that you could use during this phase. But the one thing that you can do during this phase at some point is to eventually come back from the experience and realize that you were in an altered state. So have the understanding that being in a psychosis is different from understanding that you were in a psychosis. So just having that understanding that, oh, I was altered or I got stuck in a state is the most important realization you can have when coming out of psychosis, because that bridges the gap between you not thinking that you have gone into psychosis, that there's something wrong with you, and understanding that, oh, I was different, I was in a different state. Because that's self-awareness, and then we can start to grow from that point. So that's really the first goal, is to be able to understand I was in psychosis, something was different about me, and we'll end there for phase one. So phase two is grounding. Grounding can only happen once you've stepped out of that psychosis. So once you've actually had the self-realization that, hey, like I was in a psychosis, I was in an altered state, then we can start working on grounding. So things you can expect from grounding. Another word for grounding could be also coming down from the experience, so coming out of the psychosis. A lot of times you might experience sifting through thoughts at this point in time, probably lesser symptoms than what you experienced in the actual psychosis, but you might still have lingering symptoms from that for sure. There might be a decrease in mood and motivation, possibly an onset of depression slowly as kind of the high of the psychosis kind of goes away. Sometimes the depression kind of creeps in, and I think there's several reasons for that, but I won't necessarily go into that in this video. I think I talk about it in my other video about depression after psychosis. The main thing with this phase, as far as like what you can do, is making sure again that you have a safe space to process your experience, because after going through psychosis, you're going to need to kind of unpack it and feel like you have a space where you can kind of allow yourself to kind of relax and let go of some of the stuff from the psychosis. It's a process. Honestly, for me, the hardest part of my psychosis was sort of transitioning out of it, and a lot of it was the reintegration, which will be the next phase, but I won't get into that now. So a lot of what's involved with the grounding phase is starting to look at your worldview and how you perceive yourself and the world critically. So you have to start looking at, where are my beliefs coming from? Where are these ideas coming from? Are they coming from a place that is valid or that is proven by reality? Or are these things or these delusions that I am following, are they coming from a place that has no concrete evidence for At least that was my experience. I had to go through that phase. I didn't really have any hallucinations, and so I can't really speak for that. If you're still experiencing hallucinations, I think maybe that's where medication might help to sort of address that symptom. I'm not sure what the process is for working with hallucinations, unfortunately. And just making sure that, again, that you take the time and space you need to process, rest, and recover in this phase. This phase can take a while, and again, I mentioned that you can get into kind of a deep depression during this phase. Just know that a lot of people experience this, and it does pass. At least it did for me and a lot of people that I speak to. It does pass over time. Just be patient with yourself and remember to be gentle and just do what you can in this phase. It just takes time to work through. All right, so that's going to be phase 2. And now we're going to move into phase 3, which is reintegration. Reintegration, you may still be coming out. You may still kind of be in a depression or coming out of it. You might be looking to re-engage or have goals and visions of where you'd like to be in the future. You might want to sort of reach out to your friends and start to want to do things. But you might also feel scared and insecure and a little bit vulnerable. Similar to the state in the phase 2 where we're kind of coming out of the psychosis, you might feel kind of weak and vulnerable and exposed. But with the reintegration phase, we're going to be learning how to basically go back out there in a way that's manageable and is achievable for us. So it may be uncomfortable and it may be a little bit awkward because we feel like we have to relearn a lot of things. But a lot of the process of reintegration is exposure. So you have to learn how to create realistic goals and expose yourself to the outside world again. So you have to learn how to reintroduce yourself into activities at a manageable rate. And you also have to continue to evaluate your worldview and belief system in order to ground yourself and help you understand that some of the delusions that you were having weren't necessarily based in reality. And so coming back to a more grounded approach will help you to kind of come out of that psychosis state and help you to reintegrate back into society as well. And a lot of people in this phase can get sort of caught in the idea of wanting to go back to where they were before, feeling like they lost something from psychosis, which is understandable. I try to help people remember that psychosis is an experience that they have, and it's going to change them to some degree. It's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It's just, you go through any experience, it's going to change you. And so you have to redefine your expectations of yourself and your life and where you'd like to go based on what you're able to do in the moment. Doesn't mean you won't be able to do the things you were able to before, but the way you approach them right now might be different. And so you have to learn to accept the new norm of where you're at right now and move forward with that and not try to base your standard of living based off of what was before, because that will just create more suffering and more expectation that can't be met where you are right now. So a lot of the phase of reintegration is accepting where you are and learning how to move forward from where you are in the moment. And acceptance honestly goes for every step of the process, but reintegration is really where it starts to come into play. And phase 4 is the last phase, and that's going to be maintenance and preventing relapse. Maintenance and preventing relapse can look like a lot of different ways for different people. Some people are able to bounce back from psychosis relatively quickly, and they're able to get back on their feet, and they don't have much trouble afterwards with relapses. Maybe it was like a drug-induced psychosis, and they just stay away from drugs, and there's not an issue. Whereas some people maybe struggle, and the psychosis was hard for them, and they weren't able to get enough support, and so the maintenance and the reintegration process, the reintegration process might take longer. And so every person's maintenance is going to look a little bit different. Maintenance is basically a continued practice of self-inquiry and self-understanding. So you have to understand yourself and understand like what your triggers are, understand how to take care of yourself, understand what led you down that path towards psychosis, and getting help if you need it to prevent you from going down that path again or to work through things that were brought up from the psychosis. A lot of this phase 4 is, like I said, understanding yourself. And you really have to know what you need as an individual to mitigate stress and to mitigate some of the things that created the psychosis. And yeah, that's pretty much it for that one. So as far as timelines go for these different phases, phase 1 is going to be, for me, it was about 2 weeks. So the actual psychosis itself was about a 2-week process, but it can be up to 2 to 3 months. For some people, it could be 3 days. For some people, it really depends on the person. There's a lot of different people who have different experiences of psychosis that can vary significantly. But for me, it was 2 weeks. The grounding phase, again, is going to vary for each person. But the grounding phase, from the point where I came out of my psychosis to the point where I wanted to start reintegrating, that probably took about 2 months for me to kind of, maybe a month and a half to 2 months. That grounding phase where I had this really strong depression and started coming back out of it, I would say would be about 1.5 to 2 months, maybe even 3 months, honestly, but probably more like 2 months. But for each person, it could be different. Like I said, some people might be shorter, it might be longer. The reintegration process, that's a longer timeline. So you can see each one kind of progressively gets longer, like as it goes out. So phase 1's the shortest, phase 2 is a little bit longer, phase 3 for me took about, the reintegration process for me took about, I would say 3 years from my first psychosis, 3 to 4 years from my first psychosis for sure. And then the phase 4, maintenance and preventing relapse, that's going to be, it's going to be a long time. I mean, it could be the rest of your life. It could be like 4 to 5 years. But basically, once you've gotten yourself to a point where you feel like you're pretty comfortable taking care of yourself, you know what your triggers are, you take care of them when they come up. But maintenance and prevention is going to be like something I practice the rest of my life. I'm always working on something. I'm not necessarily worried about psychosis, but there's always things that I'm working on fine-tuning and learning about myself as far as like self-acceptance and learning what expectations I have of myself that are unrealistic, that are causing stress. And there's always more to learn. And psychosis is really a great way to open the door for self-help. And helping you learn how to accept yourself. So yeah, those are the 4 phases. I hope those were helpful for you guys. I know a lot of people ask questions about my full recovery process and sort of what it looks like. If you have more questions for me, let me know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe as well. You can also schedule sessions with me. All that information is going to be on my website, which will be in the description below. And as always, guys, make sure to seek your truth and to take time for yourself. I'll catch you in my future videos. Bye for now.